Let's move on to Samuel Johnson, who in 1872, just a year after the publication of Clarke's magnum opus, releases Oriental Religions and their relation to universal religions. This is, he releases the first of a 3-volume massive set. Johnson's efforts make an interesting contrast to that of Clarke. Like Clarke, Johnson, his roots were in Unitarianism, and he also identified himself as a Transcendentalist. Now, unlike Clarke, Johnson gives up the Unitarian ministry after only just 1 year and decides to preach henceforth in a non-denominational church, something I can relate to, folks. He departs from traditional Christianity and he champions what he calls universal religion, a faith that embraces all the major religions of the world. His approach to Eastern thought and spiritual values was both more sympathetic and transcendental than Clarke. And Johnson becomes a serious student of the East, researching and writing for 20 years, 2 decades, before the first volume, which is on India, actually sees the light of day. He decides to retire from the ministry and dedicates the rest of his life to finishing the massive Oriental religions. Now, let me make a comment here about the term Oriental, which is viewed by some people as derogatory these days. Well, it's certainly derogatory when you apply it to a person. When you call a person an Oriental, well, it's not a very kind remark. But when you apply it to a culture, as is the case here, Johnson is applying the term Oriental to the cultures of India, Persia, and China. So I just want to clarify that because I don't want any nasty emails because I'm saying the word Oriental. So now that that's cleared up. Now, as I mentioned, he works 20 years on the first volume. The second volume, which is on China, appears in 1877. And the final and third volume on Persia was nearly finished when Clarke dies in 1882, I believe it is. The book was subsequently edited by his friend Octavius Frothingham and was published 2 years later in 1884. Now, though Johnson engaged in a variety of enterprises, writing regularly for journals and periodicals, the massive 3-volume Oriental Religions was the major work of his creative life. And Johnson's treatment of Eastern philosophy and spirituality was inseparable from his transcendental religious ideals. To Johnson, God is eminent in nature and eminent in humanity. All creation, to Johnson, revealed the presence of the divine, what Johnson called a universal or infinite mind. And religion was not a matter of creed or organization, but the spirit that flows through such externalities. Johnson envisioned the history of religion as a process of growth, an evolution towards a universal faith, a new religion that embodies all the essential elements in all past spiritual religious development. Each of the great religions manifested the evolution of the divine. What distinguishes Hinduism or Confucianism from Christianity, according to Johnson, was not the falsehood of one or the truth of the other, but the difference in race and environment within which the infinite universal mind had, channeled itself. For example, the quirks of Vedic or Aryan intellectualism and the everating climate of the Indian subcontinent had given the Indian spiritual mind its distinctive mystical dreaminess, as well as its anti-material qualities. Similarly, according to Johnson, utilitarianism of China's thinkers, and the geographical isolation of her vast population. People locked in by water and mountain barriers had essentially given the Chinese mind its distinctive Confucian stamp. Johnson seeks to relate religious ideas to social customs and political and economic systems, the systems in which the religions flourished. To him, each of the world's great religions embodied universal elements, but none were free of corruption. He felt that a growing process was taking place, a gradual elimination of all corruption or non-essential elements, until the great religions of the world coalesced, amalgamated, melded into the universal religion, a religion that was now purified and contained the best in each and every one of the world's faiths. This is an interesting viewpoint. This is really, Johnson's really an interfaith spiritual individual here. This is remarkable work here. Now, the virtue of Samuel Johnson's approach was its broad universality